No one is born confident, not even the smartest, and that's where many get confused. They believe that only those who have a high IQ, a diploma, or an extraordinary ability will go far. But without confidence, even the brightest genius can be a walking failure. That's what happened to Ethan, a 23-year-old American with a sharp mind for science and an enviable memory. But when it came time to speaking in public, presenting a project, or even asking for an opportunity, he crashed. It was as if his own intelligence sabotaged his voice. And you know the worst? His father, a demanding and rigid businessman, didn't understand this. Mr. Daniels, Ethan's father, believed that everything was solved with pressure. When he saw his son fail, he pointed his finger and said, "You're a disappointment." No filter, no empathy. That wasn't just father's scolding. It was a direct blow to the boy's self-esteem, who began to see himself as a dead weight. The absence of confidence eroded his motivation and made him question himself even in the little things. Can I order a coffee alone? Am I good enough to try again? This shows that even with intelligent and a natural affinity for topics such as neuroscience, without faith in oneself, any step becomes a mountain. And no matter how much he studied, tried to please, followed all the traditional advice, nothing worked. Because the problem wasn't outside, it was inside. And that's where the detail that no one talks about lies. Directionless persistence sinks more than helps. Ethan lived trapped in a looping of effort without result, like someone who rose without leaving the place. His brain, so sharp in science, didn't know how to shut up the fear of rejection, criticism, failure. And with every criticism from the father, it only got worse. But fate has curious ways to turn the game around, and his was about to change in a way he would never imagine. Ethan was on the edge of the abyss, seeing no way out. He thought that his life had no more purpose and that dreams had been left behind. Until one afternoon, when he was wandering around the city, he met an elderly man who seemed to have come out of an old tale. The old man, simple-looking but with a penetrating look, approached Ethan and said, "Weenie you think is a failure, can be the door to your true strength." Ethan, still in shock with the words of that stranger, told a little of his pain. The old man then challenged him, "You have 3 days to complete 3 tasks. In the end, you will find out what you really need to change your life." These words stayed in Ethan's head, like a seed waiting to germinate. On the first day, the old man told Ethan to talk to strangers. At first, Ethan hesitated, his confidence was almost non-existent. But the old man reminded him of something crucial: you already know fear. Now it's time to get to know him closely. Ethan approached a group of people in a square, stuttering and with a racing heart. However, to his surprise, everyone was receptive. The simple exchange of words made him realize that fear was just a mental construction. It was not the situation that paralyzed him, but how he prepared to face it. The second challenge was to teach children in a local school. Ethan, who always felt inadequate to be a leader, was afraid of being judged. But when he realized how thirsty the children were for knowledge, something inside him began to change. He realized that he had something valuable to offer, and this simple understanding made his confidence bloom little by little. On the third and last day, the old man asked Ethan to go to his father and apologize. The most difficult task of all. Ethan was furious with what his father had done, but he knew he needed to do that. When he got home and sat down with his father, he did what seemed unthinkable. He apologized not for his failure, but for the fear that always prevented him from being who he really was. At that moment, something changed inside both of us. Ethan's father, touched by his son's vulnerability, didn't know what to say. What began as a gesture of humility turned into liberation. Through persistence and courage, Ethan was beginning to rebuild the confidence he had lost. At the end of the challenge, the old man smiled as if he knew what was ahead. "What did you find out?" he asked Ethan. The young man, now more confident, replied with renewed confidence, "I discovered that fear never goes away, but I can control it. True transformation does not come from an innate talent or a great feat, it comes from the persistence in facing what paralyzes us the most. The old man looked into Ethan's eyes and added, "Fear, my young man, is not your enemy. He only exists to test your courage and your will to grow. It's your confidence that will guide you in the right direction." That, for Ethan, was like a revelation. He didn't need to be perfect, he just needed to believe he could improve. With a lighter heart and a clearer mind, Ethan began to put into practice what he had learned. He stopped waiting for the approval of others and began to trust his own choices. When he began his journey to the business world, he saw that the doors that were previously closed opened more easily. Not because he knew more than others, but because he believed in his potential. Neuroscience teaches us that when we repeat an action constantly and with belief in our success, our neurons form new connections, creating a network of trust in our brain. Ethan applied this in his life and, in a short time, found himself respected as an innovative entrepreneur, respecting others and himself. Ethan's story is a story of transformation, but it is also a reminder that everyone has in themselves the power to change. Trust is not born overnight, it is built over time and with small and consistent actions. Ethan was no longer the shy and insecure boy, but a man who understood that, no matter how challenging the circumstances were, his self-confidence and his ability to persist were his greatest weapons. With this in mind, he has become an example of how true strength lies in believing in oneself, even when life challenges us in every possible way.